You remember the show Lost? Of course you do,
Yeah,
because we used to watch it together.
I'm
But
obsessed with Lost.
yeah, so you remember when they like first like hit the deserted island and everybody's like taking inventory of what they have and emptying their pockets and making like a pile of all the stuff that they have to figure out how to survive? It's very much like that. Like as a team, we all have these skills and interests and different things that are hidden, tucked away in our pockets that we don't use day to
Right.
day. And it's like, how do we be resourceful and be like, oh, there's that belt is a tourniquet, like we need that
Yeah.
over here.
Yeah.
Like we, our people operations coordinator is helping on social media, and our office manager is helping on customers support tickets, and like you figure out where to plug holes and reallocate your resources because the needs of the company temporarily change.
Hey, what's up? And welcome back to Process Makes Perfect. It's been a bit since season one. This is Jonathan Ronzio, Chris's brother. You don't hear me on the podcast prior to this, but Chris, what is this? What are we doing?
This is a impromptu discussion that we're having about how our company and the world is dealing with this coronavirus pandemic. So I know there's been a lot of questions that I've been getting on LinkedIn that employees have been talking to us about, that our other entrepreneur friends are discussing in private groups. And we wanted to just sort of have a conversation pretty candidly about what we're doing, how we're communicating, what we're thinking about, and how people can be prepared to weather the storm.
So if any of that is relevant to you right now, please stay tuned. It's a great conversation around the forced transition to remote work, the global pause / slowdown of what's going on in the economy right now, and how to think about that for your team and your business, with plenty of metaphors mixed in as always, because it's a Ronzio bro conversation and we like metaphors.
Can this business thrive without the owner?
You got to start putting systems and processes in place. If you don't use the systems, the business will break.
We're always looking to buy back our time.
You cannot say something once and expect that it actually is received.
This is the way we work.
A big motivation in that for me is creating a job for myself that I really enjoy.
This is how you discover your vision.
And this is Process Makes Perfect.
All right, Jonathan. So we were just talking about the current state of the company and decided to just roll while we were talking, because I think a lot of the issues we're facing as a company, other businesses are facing as well. So this is everything from, what this being thrown into remote work has done for culture, for our business. It's how do we reorganize people's roles and what they're doing when they can't do some of their normal responsibilities. It's how does this affect our projections, our hiring plan, the purchase decisions we're making. So we were just chatting about all of this, and we decided to kind of just roll. So welcome to
a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah. So maybe let's just start with a quick frame of reference of when we're recording this and what's going on in the world.
Sure. So it's Friday, March 20th right now. It's been the first week that most of the United States has been, I'd say, self-quarantined at home. It hasn't been like a national mandate, but everybody's just kind of been inside. I think you've seen probably some drone videos at some of the big cities that show it looks like it's the apocalypse. It's like downtown Boston right now. It looks like I Am Legend. There's like one person walking around. It's insane. But it's, on one hand, it's like, it's scary what's going on. On another, it's kind of inspiring to see how dramatically the world changed its behavior and made the sacrifices for the potential protection of 2 to 3% or maybe less of the population that are, if you look at like the fatality rate of this coronavirus that's spreading around, and it's like, for not to say 2 to 3% is a small percentage, that'd be like a massive impact, but for everybody to change their working and personal lives so much for that is pretty cool. So I guess you always got to like look on the bright side and see the silver lining. But it's been certainly an interesting week. It was my birthday this week. It was the first, we canceled my party, and my wife and I just had a nice little dinner at home and watched Netflix. And Again, trying to focus on the optimistic side. It's been the first time in like over 2 years that I've just like canceled all travel on my books and haven't like had anywhere to go and have just been inside and kind of this forced pause. It's like a forced slowdown. And I'm actually reading this book in praise of slowness right now in tandem with that to kind of just like get in the mindset of challenging that cult of speed that we've all been so addicted to.
Yeah, and so last night, I think, or sometime yesterday, California made the mandate that 40 million people stay at home with like fines if they're outside. So I mean, that's a big move, and you don't know if that's going to spread to other states and they'll follow suit. But I think one of the interesting things is that as a country, the U.S. has been able to watch how other countries have reacted to this, 10 days or 14 days ago, where our numbers on the graph are kind of where other countries were a week or two ago. Hopefully that's made us react quicker and learn from their lessons. So I'd like to see this
hopefully
taper off soon, but we'll see.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, for instance, most of the Trainual team is out in Scottsdale, Arizona, where you are. And I was there when we launched this thing, but I've since gone back to Boston. And so I generally travel there about a week of every month. But 75% of my time throughout the year is generally like this. It's remote. And so I've been more comfortable working remote, being a remote leader, being the one person on a screen with the other 5 to 25 people on the other side, and having to deal with those social dynamics and still be able to manage and get work done. I think that it's been an interesting shift for the rest of our team, including you, to like go totally remote for the first time. But me, as the one who had been remote, it's kind of nice to like not be the one to many on the video screen and actually see like all the different tiles of all the people all in their spaces. It makes communication for me a little easier. But that's a unique thing to point out in that like companies that have that kind of hybrid dispersed team situation where some are remote and some are in an office, like there is a social dynamic challenge that presents.
Yeah, the first time we did our all hands meeting and we had, 30 faces on a screen and we're looking at everyone, I left that meeting feeling like I gave each individual more attention than I would otherwise if we were just in a cluster in a room. Because I felt like when I'm in a room presenting, it's more that one to many, like you feel when you're looking at one video screen on the other side. But when you see 29 other faces, it makes you look at everyone and see how every person is reacting. And so that part of it was cool. The downside, I think, is, at least here in the office, I tend to bounce around a lot throughout the day. Like I'll sit on the beanbag in this room, and then I come over here and see what's going on, and then I go downstairs and sit on another meeting. And I like being a fly on the wall in a lot of those cases and drifting and listening and chiming in. And I can't do that right now. So I feel right now like I have to be much more intentional with scheduling meetings on my calendar, and I'm sick of looking at the screen all day.
You just need to like get a 1-page list of everybody's Zoom link and just randomly throughout the day just start clicking the links and just see if there's meetings going on. It's like a chat roulette kind of thing. You just pop in and just say hello.
Yeah, that's funny. Actually, so you mentioned Zoom. We started using that breakout room feature yesterday. We played with that with our leadership team, and I don't know if you knew this, but when I split as the host of the meeting, when I split it into breakout rooms, it didn't put me in one of the rooms. And so I could choose to go into a room, leave the room, go into another room. And that was like the closest I've felt since we've been quarantined to that experience. So that was kind of cool. But
that was cool. So I guess that's a good segue into like how we are still engaging the team. I think that there's some of the team members are thriving in the remote environment, and everybody's feeling like they can be head down and productive and not be pulled into random conversations or distractions, which do happen in the office. And other members are craving more social interaction. So things like the book club meeting that we did last night, like what can other companies do to virtually foster team engagement? And you can talk about the book club and kind of anything, more related to the breakout stuff.
Yeah, so we started doing a quarterly book that as a leadership team we were reading, and then we opened it up to the whole company, anyone that wants to join. So when we do our quarterly planning meetings, we dedicate an hour, last hour, for everyone to join and talk about the book we all read. So we did that yesterday, and that was just a great chance to connect on a topic other than what we're working on, because you do Zooms and meetings all the time on like the projects you're working on that day. It's nice to connect with someone over something outside of your day to day. And so whether it's, a book or something that you're personally growing together, or it's just more casual. I know we've done these little donut meetings, they're called. They pop up on Slack and pair you with someone different. And people are still doing those donut meetings just over Zoom. And they're sitting and eating lunch together or having a cup of coffee together. And I think that's really cool to still hang out with someone. I've seen people posting like FaceTime happy hours and Instagram group video chats, and people are searching for ways to interact with each other when they're not face to face. So it just takes, I think, a little more intentionality.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. So actually, one of the fun things that we did in response to like us personally trying to figure out how to transition our company to remote is we were like looking at all these articles and watching videos and figuring out like what are the essential tools in our tech stack that allow us to operate seamlessly remote. And then we pulled all that together, and as our response to this to be helpful for our customers and just the broader market, we made this remote work resources website. So just remoteworkresources.com. And it's just everything that helped us transition and the tools that we think are the best out there for like the essentials of working your business. So I want to prompt you to like, for people that are thinking through, not knowing how long this is going to last, not knowing like the uncertainty in the market, the economic potential downturn lasting longer than we want it to. What are the things that are the essential ways a business can operate? Like if you have to be remote, what are those tools or tips?
Well, it's crazy. I saw this article, and there was a documentary about the flu and how in the early 1900s there was this pandemic, and they thought it'd come again in 100 years, or is this like 100-year flu idea. And if you think about how work was 100 years ago, or even like 15 or 20 years ago, I think the world would have been unprepared to continue working like it has. We're fortunate that SaaS companies have made it so easy to work remote, and we were just able to flip the switch. I know not every business is like that. Like I know there's certain government agencies and things that they just can't flip the switch and log into everything remotely. Like there's security concerns. We're a little different in that all of our tools are already cloud-based. And so the ones that we rely the most heavily on, first, communication. So, Zoom and Skype and Slack, like these are tools to chat and to have video chats and stand-ups, and, other people might use GChat or Google Hangouts. But you need some way to communicate with people and do that seamlessly. And I think more and more people have those tools already because you travel internationally, your data plan doesn't work, your Wi-Fi connected, but your Slack still works, or your WhatsApp still works, or whatever. So that's, I think, the most basic thing, is to still be able to communicate. Obviously, email, most people can access from anywhere. So that's a good fallback. And then there's your task and project management. So the workload that's on your plate and being able to track that and know when other people are getting their work done, that's a pretty fundamental thing in business. So we use Asana. In the past, we've used Teamwork, Basecamp, Trello, all these different project management tools. So whatever your flavor of project management, that's really important. If you don't have the complexity of a lot of people collaborating on a project, you could probably get by with just a task management tool like Todoist or one of those real simple task list tools, and that at least keeps you on track, and you can share a list with someone or a couple people in your company and know who's doing what. So I think that's the second thing, is the making sure the work's on track. And then everything else is kind of the departmental stuff. Like we have our finance tools, Xero, or you might use QuickBooks, like all that's still operating. I can still pull all our financials. We're in the process of talking to banks and investors, and that stuff doesn't require me sitting in the office with a server and a data room. It's all cloud based. So it's important to have access to that. There's your file management, having Dropbox or OneDrive or any of the Google Drive, any of these places where you store all your files. I can't imagine if someone was relying on a shared physical hard drive in the office and didn't have some kind of cloud backup or cloud storage solution, because then all of your files are just like locked up in the office, so that's something that you should absolutely have in place. There's, I look at our marketing tools. You can speak to this, like all the tools we use for marketing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like having the Adobe Creative Cloud suite to be able to still edit videos and designs and all the sales enablement and customer content and then the ads that we're putting out and just the ad platforms. Like you can still run all of your Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and Quora and Reddit and Google and all of that just totally remote. You can manage all of your organic, search and your social channels and your blog, and it's the whole marketing stack is fortunately that's been totally online for a very long time.
Yeah, WordPress, you can log in, you can still, for the website, all the analytics tools that we have. And then there's the customers, the customer tools like Intercom and chat, and people use Zendesk, and those are all online to keep the conversation with your customer going. We use AirCall, which is like a virtual calling system that forwards phone numbers for our customers and sales to talk to our sales reps. We've got people tools like our applicant tracking system, because we're still getting a lot of applicants. People are, unfortunately being laid off. And so we're seeing a lot of applications as more people are sitting at home looking for jobs right now. We can continue that process.
There was something like 380,000 people filed for unemployment yesterday.
Wow.
I think crazy. I saw it's definitely a bad situation for a lot of people in the security of their jobs. But regarding the marketing side of things too, though, one thing we had been talking about is how to pivot our own message. Because for so long, Trainual, I know, we're not here to pitch Trainual in this podcast, but at the same time, it is one of those tools that it allows us to ensure that our operational knowledge is, well distributed and understood. And for 2 years, we've been targeting with this message around you're growing, you're hiring, you're scaling fast. How do you ensure that people are trained and onboarded and up to speed and productive quickly? And now, given what's going on, we're well, what is the current value prop for our customers? It's not that they're necessarily hiring a ton of people and needing to onboard really quickly. It's that they need to know that people know how to do things right from wherever they are. They need to know that people have access to the info that they need to do their jobs. And just you need to know what your employees know.
Yeah, so the conversation has flipped a little. Like you said, it's not about hiring and scaling and opening locations. It's about freezing your hiring and trying to keep your people busy, and unfortunately in some cases having to do furloughs or layoffs, and maybe outsourcing certain tasks that were done by someone in-house, or getting a contractor up to speed because you still need the work done but you can't afford to do it full time, or there's this shift in the market. And so as a product, we had to anticipate this, which we did, but we also have to be ready to flip quickly. I remember 2 years ago, we were brainstorming on this, in a good market, what would happen in a bad market? How would we position the product? And so really it's in good times and in bad times, it's your business knowledge insurance almost, it's like the ways that you sustain yourself as a business by doing the things that make the business money. How do you make sure that instruction manual is staying intact, especially if the people with that knowledge are in some cases leaving the company? How do you make sure that the company retains the secret recipes and that they don't go out the door? And so we've reorganized some things on our product roadmap to address this. We've shifted a little bit of our messaging, but I think anyone that's listening should think about how to do that in their own business too. I had someone comment on a LinkedIn post I put out that they had to close their rehab clinic, and what should they do? And my first thought was, well, people still need rehab during this time. It's not like that need goes away. It's just that you're not allowed to go to the rehab clinic. So how do you deliver rehab virtually? Is there a service where you can send people to them like Instacart delivers my groceries, or can you do it virtually over video, or can you put together lesson plans or weekly call accountability sort of check-ins, how do you virtualize that model? And I think that's something everyone has to face.
Where is the pivot for the opportunity completely, right? Because it's like, right now it seems dire that maybe that person had to shut the doors on the rehab facility, but if the audience, if the demand is still there, if their customer base is there, if they probably still had appointments that were booked months out, like if they pivot smartly right now to, like you're saying, deliver some kind of virtual program, then maybe that becomes the future model for the business, and they don't have the operational overhead of having a in-house place, of having the people staffed there, and it becomes more of a digital rehab environment that is even more profitable, assuming you can deliver what the people still need and hit that same value.
Yeah, I've seen some variation of this quote a few times, but it's something like, you can't control the direction of the tides, but you can learn to surf, and it's like, if you can navigate whatever is happening, then you'll have long-term success in business. And I think there is opportunity amidst all of this. It's just a matter of being proactive and figuring out, okay, like it's not just my rehab clinic that closed, it's all of them. So what is that customer doing right now? Like, how do we still service that customer? If you're the one that figures it out the fastest, then you just won in that race. Another thing we've talked about is our hiring plan changing, with the exception of our product team. And I think this is an interesting thing to talk about, because, you can run lean, and I want to actually get into this a bit. Running lean, sharing responsibilities, like getting people creative. But the point I want to make is, like, our product team is what is driving the vision of the business forward. And everything else kind of supports that vision and the success of our customers and finding new customers and all of that. But if we don't have a product, we don't have a business. And so in this market, I want to be doubling down on advancing the product, because I see that as the thing other people will neglect. I think it's sort of like in a race when you're told to pedal uphill, or pedal downhill, don't like coast when everyone else is coasting. Like that's when you want to get ahead. I think it's the same thing with pushing our product. So we're still hiring engineers, and we're very committed to that, but in other areas we've cut back. So why don't you talk about, what we're doing to be cost conscious and stay lean through this?
For sure. So I think that comes down to understanding the people you have on your team as people, and not just the employees that, in the roles that you hired them for. I think something that we've always put a lot of emphasis on is developing, somebody personally as well as professionally. And in doing that, as leaders, as managers, you understand what somebody's working on outside of work. You understand where they want to go in their own career. That might not be that they're at your company in 5 years, and you're okay with that, and you're helping them get there. So for me, having that understanding of, let's just say on the marketing team, of the skill sets and the talent that's on our bench, more than just, okay, you're doing PR, or more than just you came in and you're a writer. Understanding what people do beyond that allows you to tap them for more when you need them for more, as long as they're able to rally behind the company's mission. And I think the more that you support them, the more that they will support the company. It's kind of like that flywheel effect there. And For instance, like, I'll call it out. Our PR manager, she constantly is just like investing in herself personally outside of work, and is passionate about tons of different things. And as part of a review, we got her access to masterclass to like learn how to cook and learn how to design and learn how to do all these things, because she's a perpetual learner. But knowing that meant that like when we needed something potentially designed that we got held up, it was like she just jumped in and was like, yeah, I can tackle that. I can do it. And so that's, I think, the understanding like where the different talents lie on your team allows you to operate leaner, because you can allow people to multitask. And I think that keeps jobs interesting. They're like constantly working on different things. Their role and their vision for their growth at the company might evolve as they test out different areas of being, resourceful and productive and adding to the vision and the growth. And so that's I think like I'm totally cool not hiring anybody in marketing. We were gonna add like another 3 to 4 people, and it's like, no, we can get by on what we have right now.
You remember the show Lost? Of course you do, because we used to watch it together.
I'm obsessed with Lost.
Yeah, so you remember when they like first hit the deserted island, and everybody's like taking inventory of what they have and emptying their pockets and making like a pile of all the stuff that they have to figure out how to survive? It's very much like that. Like as a team, we all have these skills and interests and different things that are hidden, tucked away in our pockets that we don't use day to day. And it's like, how do we be resourceful and be like, oh, there's that belt is a tourniquet, like we need that over here. Like we, our people operations coordinator is helping on social media, and our office manager is helping on customers support tickets. And, like you figure out where to plug holes and reallocate your resources, because the needs of the company temporarily change.
But that's not a natural state for so many companies and so many employees, that the employees would be willing to do that. They're like, oh, this is outside of my scope of responsibilities. This is outside of like what I'm getting paid for. But that attitude is like, they're bound to have that attitude if the company does not have a personal interest in them and personally interested in developing them. I think just the same way that in any kind of economic downturn or whatever the constraint or uncertainty is that's facing your business, your current customers are your greatest asset, and you need to nurture them so that they don't leave you. And that's the same thing with your employees at all times. Like if you nurture your employees along the way and you support them both personally and professionally, then they're going to be that much more bought into the mission long term and want to figure out how to turn their belt into a tourniquet because, Jackie's bleeding on the side, right? Like whatever is going on, like people will figure it out.
Who is Jackie?
I don't know. I was just coming up with a random name.
All right. Well, Jackie, apologies if you're watching this. He did not mean it. All right. So we talked a little bit about, our own people plan and how we're adjusting. We talked about the product and what we're doing there. I think another thing that's important is communication. So I woke up at like 2 a.m. a few nights ago, and mostly because I was hungry, not because I was thinking about anything. I had a really early dinner.
But you're always up at 2 a.m. snacking.
I know it's bad, but when I'm pacing around the kitchen in the middle of the night, that's when I have some really good ideas. And so I had this thought that, we had given people surface level information at the company. We had said, at first we decided we were going to go all remote, it was like 10:30 at night, the night before we went all remote. We posted on Slack and we said, for the next 2 days, for the rest of this week, let's go remote. We'll keep it as a test. We'll see how it goes. We'll watch the news. And then we decided from there to go totally remote the next week. But we've given people just like doses of little bits of information, but we haven't given people a broad, here like State of the Union. And it's timely that we're having this conversation now because it's Friday right now, and on Monday in our all hands meeting, I've got a presentation prepared to everyone based on our conversations this week to deliver the more broad message, because I want everyone to know like, here's our state of health at the company. Like, here's how we're doing financially. Here's what the next 12 to 24 months looks like. Here's how we might be modifying our plans. Here's what we're going to do with hiring. Here's what we anticipate with the new office we're moving into, and with our, how long remote work is going to go for. Here's what we're expecting on the customer and sales side. Like, what's worst case scenario? Don't be concerned if you see this, this, and this happening. Here's the plans we're putting in place for the product. And that's something that I'm embarrassed it took a week to figure out that that's what I should do. And I would be having that message sooner to everyone if everybody wasn't already blocked out for various meetings this week. Like, that's Monday's the first time we've got everyone together.
I think, given the circumstances of how this evolved, it was hard to know the scope and seriousness of like, what was happening. But I do think that it's a good lesson. It's like, think about when you're on an airplane, right? Like, there may be uncertainty in the market, but how do you eliminate uncertainty within your team? And to me, that feels like if you're flying and all of a sudden the plane starts bumping 2 to 20 feet up in the air and is like, massive turbulence, and there's no explanation, and you're just starting to freak out, like, what is going on? Like, how serious is this? Whereas, like, if 2 minutes before that, the pilot, came on the radio and was like, "Hey, we're about to enter, some turbulence. Like, don't worry about it. It's you're gonna feel some disturbance, and we've got it covered for the next flight. We're gonna pause in-flight cabin service for the next 5 minutes, potentially as long as 20 minutes, but we'll keep you posted." Just letting people know ahead of time. And like, maybe it is worse than you anticipate, and then you come on, you're like, "Hey, sorry, we're not gonna be able to serve you drinks for the rest of the flight, but sit tight. We'll get you where you're going."
Yeah,
that matters so much.
Yeah, great analogy. And our cousin Shannon's a pilot, and one of the things she told me about turbulence, which is so interesting, is she said turbulence is kind of like a speed bump, where, like, if you're standing on the street and you see a car going over a speed bump, you see that it doesn't affect the car. Like, you're not afraid that the car is going to crash or like fall off the road or something like that. You see it's just like a very little bump. But when you're inside the car, if you hit that speed bump going at a decent speed, it feels like it totally jostles you, and you were like we're going down, but it's not the case at all. And I thought that was so interesting, and it's relevant to the example you just shared, because from the inside, when you don't have the perspective, you feel more worried than when you zoom out and the impact that this thing is actually having. So anyway, all of our airplane analogies to say that basically communication is important.
Yeah. How do you tell your team that you are still going to land where you intended to? Right.
Yeah.
How do you get to where you're going with some bumps along the way? And communication is a key part of that.
Totally. One time I landed in a different city. Has that ever happened to you? Like, I got on a plane. I got on the plane, and because of weather, they rerouted the plane, and we had to land in a different city. And then we stayed there for like an hour, and then took off again and went back to the city I was supposed to go to.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, but again, they communicated it. It wasn't like a
they
surprise.
Let you know.
Yeah,
you didn't just touch down.
There aren't supposed to be mountains here. So
that's funny.
Okay, so what else? Anything else we want to cover? I mean, we talked about the team. I think through all of this, even if the team is slimming down, we can still grow the business without growing the team, and that's important to point out, because I think when you're growing really quickly, as we have been, we were trying to grow the team ahead of the growth because we wanted extra capacity so we never get too tight. But when you're in times like this, where everyone's understanding, taking on a little bit more capacity, being a little bit more flexible, you do want to run a little leaner. And so whereas normally you might only want everybody at 85% capacity or something, and you're ahead on your hiring pipeline, right now you want everyone at 100% capacity or 110% capacity. I think that's a different mindset, but it's kind of like if we want to all get through this together and this to not affect anyone personally, everybody is just pretty willing to roll up their sleeves and help where needed.
Yeah. And I think some industries and companies are certainly affected more drastically or more rapidly than others in this situation. But I would also caution against the knee-jerk reaction to like, oh, the way to get through this is to like lay off some of my team and to shave that overhead. Like maybe, but maybe not yet, because I mean, think about the cost of turnover. I think it's like something in like the US businesses, it costs businesses like over $1 trillion annually just in turnover costs and of like people leaving and then the hiring process to retrain and to onboard and like the lost knowledge along the way. And it's like your core team that you have right now, how can you maybe for a time just get a little more creative on how to sustain and support? And not every business will have the luxury to do that, but I think that be mindful of the cost to letting people go as you think about the savings of letting people go.
Yeah. And, it's also like, if you want the people to be there for you when business picks back up, you've got to be sensitive to how you treat them now. And I've seen, a lot of business owners I'm friends with that, don't have the luxury of a bit cash in the bank account that to sustain a few slow months. They're treating this carefully, but creatively. And some people are saying, are offering to the employees, does anyone want to go to part-time and take, a few days off unpaid? Does anyone get a little creative first and see if you get any hands raised. And then another company I know has said, we're going to look at the impact of our sales. Like if our sales go down 20%, then we've got to bring payroll down 20% across the board, because it's, that way our cash flow stays even like it should be. So I think, the most important thing you can do would be to put together a real simple spreadsheet on your cash flow and look week by week, how can you get creative? Like, are there vendors that you can get terms with and ask them if you can pay them, 2 months from now? Do you have any credit available to you that you can use? Like the SBA here in the US has just put out a lot of disaster relief loans that you can get within 2 weeks. So, could that be an option for you to get a short-term loan? The federal government here is also looking at reimbursing or doing, tax credits to cover a couple weeks of payroll. And so I'd suggest, get on top of your own cash flow and be plugged into the things that your local and federal governments might be doing to make this a little bit easier, and then get creative with your employees, with your vendors, with any kind of suppliers that you have, because everyone is going through this, and it's really just how can we work through it together? Can we barter? Can you agree to give someone free services in exchange for something that you need, and it works out well for both of you? This is just
right. This could be a really good time to open up some different channel opportunities with partners that you've been thinking like, oh, that'd be a great trade situation, and like their customer base and our customer base works well together, and that's a perfect opportunity for that right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, as we close this out, anything else that you want to share about just like preparing your business for an unpredictable downturn or whatever this is?
I mean, I would just think to yourself, how do you protect your customer base? How do you protect your employees? And how do you protect how you do what you do, right? Like the knowledge of like, this will end, this will turn around, and you don't want to lose sight of how you got to where you are. It makes me think of like, my background is in just like extreme adventure and mountaineering and exploration. And it makes me think of when I would go out into like wild environments and meet like ridiculous weather. And I always felt comfortable. Like to a lot of people, it might sound insane to me to be like in Iceland in the middle of like a 85 mile an hour, like ice storm, like whiteout, and in the middle of nowhere, just you can't see a thing in any direction. And to me, I was like, okay in that, because I knew that like in the backpack, I had the like, 4-season tent I needed, and my -20-degree sleeping bag, and my sleeping pad, and my ability to melt. I had my little cooking stove so I could melt snow for water, and I had my dehydrated meals and enough clothing, and just like I had what I needed. And so that's like for everybody to think like, what are the essentials that you have in your backpack, that you have what you need, that like in my instance, I could just, if it got too bad, I could stop and stay exactly where I was. I could pitch that tent and I could get inside and just wait it out, because like I was prepared to just sit and like reassess and not freak out. That's the biggest thing in those environments in the adventure world, is like when you're faced with the extreme situation, like to not freak out and to just take a step back and like stay where you are for a moment and reassess the terrain and reassess your plan, and then pack up again and move forward when possible.
That's such a great parallel. We should get Bear Grylls on the podcast.
It'd be good.
Yeah, let's tell Becky that would be so cool to draw the similarities between surviving in the wild and surviving through a downturn like this. But all right, well, I echo everything that you said about the business. If we can help people in any way, it's funny, we have had a lot of people writing in and saying, now that everybody's sitting at home, I feel like I finally have time to get organized. I'm being forced to slow down, and so this is something I've been wanting to do. So if we can help anybody that's listening in any way, we'd love to help you get started. Even if that means giving the software to you at no cost at the beginning, just to get you set up. So email our team, reach out to us. We're here to help you through this, and hopefully some of the things we talked about are helpful as you're navigating this for your own business. Thanks for listening, Jonathan. Thank you for
of course
letting me hit record. Enjoy. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, thanks for listening to Process Makes Perfect. If you're watching on YouTube, we do have an audio version available everywhere you listen to your podcast, so be sure to check that out. If you liked what you heard, please leave a review and be sure to subscribe to the channel here, and we'd love if you would tell a few friends or family or anyone you think that could benefit from this. You can find me on social media anywhere at Chris Ronzio, or the company Trainual, that's Train UAL, like a training manual, at Trainual, anywhere you want to follow us. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.